Hi, welcome to my YouTube channel. For next topic, you will learn about the steps involved in scientific method.
Your mom or your dad can be an expert in cooking and baking. They know salt can make food taste better. It's just that they did not call salt as sodium chloride unless your mom is a chemist. When making donuts, they know that they need yeast and sugar in the recipe. But do they really know the science behind the ingredients? You, as the future scientist, do you also know the reason we add sugar to the yeast when we want to make a donut? I left you here to think about this. Science is different from other fields because it relies on testing ideas with evidence gathered from the natural world. So how can science differ from non-science? In terms of clear, defined terminology, in science, microbiologists agrees what constitutes in a cell. A cell contains nucleus and organelles, but in non-science, we cannot define life satisfaction. So science have clear definition. In terms of quantifiability, science can measure the toxicity level of certain dose. But in non-science, how can we measure happiness? So we can say that science can be quantified. In terms of highly controlled condition and reproducibility, in science, when we perform certain experiments using identical materials and identical methods, we can get the same results. But in non-science, even in a very controlled study, we cannot get the same results as for economy study. For predictability and testability, Dmitry Mendeleev, a scientist, can predict the properties of elements that have not been discovered yet, and he has come out with a periodic table. He can predict and he can test based on scientific study. But for non-science, economists cannot explain current situation, but they do not dare to make future outcomes because economists cannot predict what can be in the future based on the current finding. So here we can say that scientific study have clear definition, can be quantified, highly controlled condition, and can be reproduced, can be predictable and testable. Science consists of a routine series of steps to collect measurable empirical evidence in an experiment related to a hypothesis. The results are aiming to support or contradict a theory.
What is scientific method? Okay, scientific method is a set of procedures that scientists use in order for them to gain knowledge about the world. Okay, so they gain knowledge through evidence, which must be measurable, must be factual, and they get this evidence through experiment, okay, related to the hypothesis which they have came out before, which then can support or contradict the theory. So here are the 5 steps in conducting scientific method. So the first step, a scientist need to make observation. Second step, after observation has been made, we can ask question about the observations being made, and then from the question we can gather information. In step 3, we can form a hypothesis based on the observation and questions we have made, and then we can make prediction from the hypothesis. In step 4, we can then conduct experiment which can be reproduced to test whether the hypothesis and our prediction before is correct or not. In step 5, from the experiment we will get data So we can then analyze the data and draw conclusion whether we need to accept or reject the hypothesis that have been made before, or we need to modify the hypothesis if necessary. Okay, now let us see an examples how those 5 steps of scientific method can be applied. Okay, first, let's say you conduct an observation in your garden. Then you ask a question on which type of fertilizer works the best for your plants. Then you make an hypothesis, okay, that plant grow best with fertilizer A. After that, you conduct an experiment using fertilizer A, B, and C on the same part of on the same species of plant, and then you get a result. From the result, you analyze the data and you make a conclusion, which then you can support that your hypothesis is proven to be correct. This is how you make the steps according to the scientific method.